This one is a story of what happened when I was 16. Okay, so I used to be like dating this girl, and like on the weekends I always went to chill at her place until like maybe 4/5 am. And I've always walked to her house cause I didn't had a car or moped, and it was like only 10 minutes of walking, so I didn't mind. On this one night, while walking back home at about 4:30 am, I was walking through the dark streets like most of the times. It was winter, so it was like dark until I heard a moped coming from behind me. I didn't think too much of it, so I didn't even bother looking behind me. So like 5 seconds later the moped pulled up next to me, and one guy pulled out a knife. He basically told me to give him all my shit, my money, phone, etc. And being who I was back then I told him to fuck off, and kept walking. So then that dude fucking ran up to me and literally pressed the knife onto my throat. That's when I pretty much realized I better give him my shit. I gave him all I had on me, but he didn't believe me, so I kept on telling him I had nothing more. Then out of nowhere the other dude that was driving the moped straight up fucking stabbed me 2 times in my stomach, and after that they drove off. There I was, literally fucking screaming for help on the streets, and thank God someone heard me and came out of their house. He quickly called an ambulance. I kept thinking I wasn't gonna survive it cause I was bleeding the fuck out. Luckily the police and ambulance arrived in like 5/10 minutes. It was one of the most terrifying moments of my entire life, and I'm glad that guy actually went outside his house to check if everything was alright at fucking 4:30 am. Fuck, this was a long time ago. I still have the scars from it. We were driving to Philadelphia, PA, and there was a bad accident. Okay, then we start hearing gunshots. There wasn't anything we could do about it because of the accident. So we started running. Obviously this was a big mistake because the shooter was aiming at us now. He shot me in the leg. I fell over. Then he threw something sharp at me and it cut my left cheek open. My boyfriend, Daniel, I'm not gay, I'm a girl. Never judge a person by their username, picked me up and started running to the nearest hospital. They stitched up my left cheek and did surgery on my leg. He saw the shooter and the police were able to get a composite sketch. He was arrested and charged with attempted murder. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison. And now me and Daniel are happily married. So that is my story. Thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it. And as always, stay mega, man. Corny joke. I live in a ghetto area of my city, and one night I had accidentally left the door open when I went to bed. It had been a long night of work, and I had not slept in 2 days. I was extremely tired. I was doing laundry trying to remove a stain in my clothes when I finally passed out with a glass cup filled with bleach. I use a glass cup because a plastic bottle is too hard to pour out of because it spills easily. When I woke up the cup was empty on the floor and my watch was missing from my wrist and it felt cold and drafty. I went up the stairs to my kitchen to see a very pale dude passed out on the floor making gargling noises with a gun in his hand. He didn't notice my presence, and so I called the police to come take him out of my house. They later told me he was suffering heavily from bleach poisoning and recovered all my stolen belongings from his truck, which was out front. He likely was making multiple trips while looting my house and mistook the bleach in my glass for a tasty beverage. Never though that something as simple as using a glass cup for laundry would save me a shit ton of money in my life. I survived the Clackamas Town Center shooting. I was in a department store, just trying to buy some pants. I was tired and stressed, and thinking the day couldn't get any worse, when I was told that the store I was in was being evacuated because someone was fucking shooting up the place. My then boyfriend, now husband, was in the Barnes & Noble halfway across the mall. Instead of evacuating the Barnes & Noble, the employees there had taken all the customers to hide in a back room. I exited them all and then ran to the doors of the Barnes & Noble that led outside. My boyfriend met me at the doors and we drove home. It was quite the scary day. My aunt used to work as a waitress at a small restaurant many years ago. One time late at night she was closing with 2 other girls when 2 masked guys walked in. My aunt told them they were closed and they held up guns in response. The masked men had the 3 girls face the wall and put their arms up. One of the guys stayed with his gun pointed at the girls, while the other started going through the cash register. My aunt was really nervous, but not as nervous as the guy watching them. His gun was shaking all over the place, and he accidentally fired a shot. My aunt didn't realize she had been shot in the leg until after they left. I don't think the masked men were ever caught. When I was 15 I hung out with a girl who had a boyfriend in the rolling 60s Crips. We were just friends, nothing more. We listened to music and went on walks and stuff. Well, her BF thought we were sleeping together and that's when the shit started. One night when I was asleep, I lived at a correctional group home at the time. For some reason my nose was super stuffy and I had to sleep on my back that night. That's the night he pulled a drive-by on my house. One of the rounds went right through the wall where I was sleeping, right above my heart. If I had been sleeping on my side, I would have died that night. No one in the home was hit. A bullet landed on one of the other kids. After it went through a few walls, that was it. I left after that. Don't really like that neighborhood anymore. When I was a high schooler working at McDonald's, I'd often close and walk home afterwards. It was about 2 miles and down many dark roads with no streetlights, but as soon as I got into the subdivisions it wasn't too bad. One night I'm walking home with 2 beers I'd gotten from some teenagers going through the drive-thru. I'd tied them into my shirt into a McDonald's shirt version of a medieval flail should anything occur. As I'm hiking along I see a car approaching slowly through the night towards me, and I tense up with my shirt/beer flail, and the car starts pulling into a driveway a few houses in front of me. As it pulls in, a dark figure jumps out of the bushes near the house with the car pulling into the driveway and runs down a side street. Thinking this is odd, I move forward cautiously, and the driveway car people are hopping out and heading into their house. Woo, no threats there, and I began to relax. Past the house a car begins driving from down the side street with the dark figure and slowly drives by me with dark tinted windows. Once past it speeds up and drives off down the road in front of me. Great, I'm freaked out again. I get to the corner and turn onto my street, and I'm nearly home free. Now I find a car driving with the lights off through the darkness, which stops a few houses in front of me on the street and switches its high beams on, and the driver door opens. I'm preparing to stove in the guy's skull as they step out with a flashlight in my eyes and begin walking towards me. When they get closer I realize it's a police officer and I relax again. He asks me what I'm doing, and I explained I was walking home from work and the encounter with the guy in the bushes. He quickly asks where my house is, a few more doors up, to which he says get home, and lock the door, and goes speeding off towards the street the dark figure drove down. I hustled back to my house, locked the door, and sat up the rest of the night with a baseball bat should anything happen. I never did find out what was going on that teenage night, but I think it could have turned out a heck of a lot worse if a few things had occurred differently. Since others are posting their pizza delivery stories, I will too. I was delivering pizza one night when 2 guys rushed me. One was holding a gun and I instinctively grabbed his gun holding hand. 3 shots were fired, the second hit me in the arm, and as the third was fired I fell to the pavement with the guy I was scuffling with just stumbling, but retaining his balance. In that eternity, that was a split second, and as I realized he was holding a gun and standing over me, I was certain there was going to be a fourth. The guy just yelled fuck, and they both ran away. I learned nearly a year and a half later from a detective that the reason they ran away was because I made the guy shoot himself in the leg, 3rd shot, and they went to a hospital about a half hour away to cover themselves. It was because of that the police were able to track him down. It went through a trial which ended with both of them in prison. I consider it a win. I also found out that about a month before this happened the gun-wielding guy forced a 17-year-old kid to murder someone. He is looking at 30 to 70 years, which was reduced from 70 to life after he flipped on the other guy involved. The other guy got 10 with a possibility of parole after 85% time served. He's probably out by now. I learned after the trial through one of the people that helped set it up that he was planning on killing me. This one is from my father. When he was a young man, he and his friends went to a dance hall just outside the city to party. They went, and they had a good time. The only problem was, my dad's friend had been banging a certain girl who had a crazy boyfriend. That boyfriend found out about it, and said crazy boyfriend swore he was going to kill my dad's friend. Well, dad and his buddies did not realize that the crazy boyfriend and his posse were going to be at the party. Lucky for them all, my dad's friend saw the crazy boyfriend first. He whispered to my dad that he needed to go and get the car running with the others. My dad did so and started driving it up to the front of the dance hall. His friend bursts out of the dance hall and comes running for the car, yelling, "Don't stop. Don't stop," in Spanish, and one of the other dudes opens the door and he jumps in. They drive off with the crazy boyfriend running behind. Unfortunately, it wasn't the end of the story, as the boyfriend got into a car and drove after my dad's car. He started firing a gun at the car, shattering glass and putting bullets into the trunk. My dad saw that there was a railroad crossing ahead with a train coming, so he puts pedal to metal and manages to get over the crossing just before the train comes, movie style, while the other boys have to wait for the train to pass. Just like the movies. However, unlike the movies, in speeding over the tracks and the indent or the train tracks were, my dad fucked up his car. For the rest of the drive home he couldn't go faster than 20 miles per hour and everyone was terrified the others were going to catch up and kill them. Luckily, it seems the crazy boyfriend and posse got bored and must have turned back. Kinda late to this one, but I have two stories. When I was 20 I was an EMT, and when I was answering another late night emergency call. When we got there was one number a man in his underwear holding a shard of glass to a woman's throat, obviously drugged out of his mind. 2 number another guy with a handgun pointing it at the police and the glass guy. 3 number like 4 police officers all with their guns out. About 1 minute into a bunch of shouting, the glass guy stabs the women in the side. Gun guy flips and fires wildly, hitting me in my leg, shattering my fibula and hitting the women/man. I don't know, I was crawling away. Another ambulance crew showed up and my partner rendered taking me in there, and they took care of the rest of the situation. I know gun guy got shot to death, but I don't remember what happened to glass guy and hostage. Story 2. When I was 17 I was walking around my friend's neighborhood talking to my girlfriend on the phone with headphones. A neighbor thought I was a crazy suicidal gunman because I had an airsoft pistol in my hand. I go into my friend's backyard, go inside to get a light to go explore the woods a bit because I live in a region of the United States that has a lot of forests. And as I come out it's about nighttime at that point. I get jumped by about 6 SWAT team officers all armed with rifles etc. And about a half second later they immediately tackled me once they saw the pistol was fake due to the tip and arrested me. A sniper saw the tip thankfully. An officer later came to my mother, who was a nurse at the time, and was crying saying he almost shot me. And my mom, who was in the air working, had to prep a room for a potential gunshot victim, me, so that was scary. One of my flatmates tried to murder me at uni. I was studying abroad in the States, and this girl was super weird. I didn't think anything of it at first, but she was off. Then I find her in my room, just printing off black pages on my printer, using up all my ink, so I tell her off and lock the printer up and tell her to stay out of my room. She tells me I'm going to regret it, but I shrug it off. What's she gonna do, right? Then I start finding glass in my food, like in everything. I throw it all out, buy new food, more glass, more finely ground this time, chuck it, buy new food. Next time I end up in the hospital, anaphylaxis to seafood, which she knew, and was not allowed in the flat. Apparently she'd poured fish sauce into all my food, told my roommates she was sick of how long the glass was taking. When the pointer asked her about it, she admitted she was trying to kill me. The school immediately moved me to a new flat, but then her parents bought the school a new something or other, and all of a sudden the unit's telling me it was an accident and it would work out poorly for me if I pressed charges. So, rich bitch is still out there, and I'll never live in America again. I worked on a ship in the merchant navy for a while, and had people try to push me overboard, as well as make subtle and not so subtle death threats, such as about how easy it is to have an accident at sea where the body isn't found. I was the only English guy on board with a crew of Filipinos and Ukrainians, aside from another cadet in a similar position as me who was there for most, but not all of the trip. Whilst I was young and couldn't handle the culture clash very well, I have no idea what I did that resulted in them wanting to actually kill me. The actual attempt occurred after me saying hey to someone whose last name happened to be by a BE and thought I was taking the piss out of him. I was walking along the deck with a couple of rubbish bags, and he shoved me towards the side of the ship whilst very high above the concrete dock. Luckily I tripped over a mooring bollard before I reached the edge. Unluckily the CCTV camera pointing where I was happened to have been switched off at the time. I got off ship ASAP, but when I tried to have action taken against the crew member, the whole crew ganged up and wrote a load of reports and stuff to my manager to make me look bad. Luckily I had some audio and video evidence to defend myself, but the whole experience was horrible and I ended up losing my job. I still freak out if I hear a ringtone similar to that of the phone I had in my room and get a surge of adrenaline as soon as someone starts raising their voice. I also get super paranoid about locking my door as I had the crew burst into my room a number of times and a few other bits I don't handle very well anymore. The whole experience fucked with my head and my life majorly. I'm doing better now, and I'm part of a good team as part of my job, where the banter is just banter, and generally not meant offensively. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more daily 6 PM Reddit uploads.